Well, welcome, Kim. Thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to have you with us today. I know you're busy, and so we're so grateful for spending time with us.
I'm grateful to be here and thanks for having me.
Excellent, excellent. Well, why don't we jump right in and get into some good conversation and have some great discussion. Let me start with just mentioning, you joined the administration about a little over a year ago. Talk to us a little bit about how things have evolved since you first stepped into your position there.
I would say it's been drinking from a fire hose every day. It has been a year of nonstop action, and each week it just gets a little more intense. But what's been great is that especially since Dr. Oz officially joined in April, we have been off to the races. As you know, crushing waste, fraud, and abuse has been a huge issue for us. We have so appreciated the partnership with you all on this, and starting in the summer when we first did some outreach. I spoke at your conference and all that. We have just been very focused on what we can do to address a lot of the issues that you and your constituency members have raised to us. And what I would say is we've just made such incredible progress on these issues in a way that I didn't think we would be able to, and in a fairly short period of time. And I think that's truly a testament to our partnership with you, but also to Dr. Oz's commitment to really trying to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah. Well, isn't that nice? Thank you for saying that. We had a board meeting earlier today, and I was saying something that I think you should hear as well, which is, I've been working with every administration, I think, since Carter, and I have never seen such an extraordinary response as you all have responded with the administrator, with you, really taking this issue, not just talking about it, but actually doing something about it. And I admire what you're doing so much because, for us, it's such a frustration to be passionate about the hospice benefit, about the patients we serve, and to think any of them are being fraudulently cared for in a way that's, inappropriate or skimping care or profiteering really is very distressing to us. So I just want to convey that you all are doing amazing work.
Well, thank you.
Kim, we had a member reach out to you recently, and you turned it around so quickly. Your response to them, they were just blown away. So thank you for that and for all you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Well, this is a top priority because of that. We really do care about the impact on those beneficiaries. Yeah. I mean, for us, there is no better and greater goal than ensuring our beneficiaries are getting hopefully the right care at the right place and the right time.
Well, even yesterday at the mental health discussion meeting, Dr. Oz brought it up to the group and said, reiterated to these mental health professionals that fraud and abuse in hospice was a primary focus and concern. So, well, Carol, I think you were going to talk a little bit about your great trip to Las Vegas, right?
Well, we had a great time with you in Las Vegas. It was a great.
No fun was had. It was all work.
That's right. Well,
now wait a minute.
I was going to say, saying we had a great time in Las Vegas can be taken many ways. So I just want to be clear. It was all work and all business. But yes, we did have a very productive visit.
Kim, that's my hometown, and so what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and we're good to go.
I like it.
I've got your back on that one. Yeah.
All right,
Kim. What was? Talk to us about maybe something that was surprised you during our conversations about fraud and abuse. And you spent so much time with Nathan Adelson Hospice and their staff and the team. And what caught your attention? What surprised you?
So I think a couple of things. I think the takeaways for Dr. Oz and I were, first of all, that the care at that hospice was extraordinary. It really was. And I know you have a big footprint on their overall business and development and everything, Carol, but it really is an extraordinary facility. And we were very blown away by the quality and caliber of the people who were there, the attention being paid. But it also was a stark contrast as we talked about the people who are not paying that much attention and who are, I think for us, the biggest takeaways were the exponential increase in the number of hospices. The fact that, 5 years ago, there were only like 50 hospices and now there's several hundred. There's been an exponential increase in Nevada. We know that to be the case. It's like a 7x increase in California, in the LA area, for hospice, and like 10x for home health. So I think those were big takeaways for us, that, the people who are doing the care and doing it well, like Nathan Adelson, are really unsung heroes. I mean, that's what you want. That's the gold standard for how care should be. But what's concerning to us is there's plenty of people out there who are being purported to getting care from entities that are nowhere close to that, and maybe not getting care at all. And oftentimes people don't even realize that they have been signed up for these benefits, and they've been signed up for them without their full knowledge or their full, appreciation of what that means. And we heard in Los Angeles from a couple of actual beneficiary stories, one from a caregiver, another direct from a family member. And it was really telling about how those beneficiaries have been taken advantage of by people going and just knocking on their door and saying, well, hey, for a 40-inch TV, we'll come and give you some, if you sign this paper, we'll give you a 40-inch TV and we'll come do some housekeeping for you. We'll do some stuff and just sign up for this. And the one beneficiary, the family member, was like, well, okay. He emotionally and mentally didn't have the capability to really know what that meant, but was like, well, it sounds like a good deal. Signed up for it, not knowing that then when he did get a terminal illness, that meant that he wasn't actually able to get the care that he needed because he was already allegedly receiving that kind of care. So I think that was really striking for Dr. Oz, the manipulation of the beneficiaries and the fact that people didn't always fully know what was happening to them, and that this was happening without their consent. And that was pretty shocking to both of us.
And Kim, you spent time in Los Angeles, not just with our members, but you took a drive around. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, we did. It's a bit controversial now because we're in a bit of a social media war with the governor of California as a result of that. But yes, we did go out to a closed hospice in one of the areas that was a high hospice fraud area. There were over 40 hospices in a 4-block area of that particular. And we went to a particular entity where, there had been the business is now closed, but there had been several millions of dollars of billings that had happened at that location. And one of the individuals involved, the owner of that particular business, was doing 2 years in jail. And so, we used that as an example so that Dr. Oz could say, this is just a neighborhood. And look, here's this neighborhood. There's like 20 different medical things around here. There's 42 hospices in this 4-block radius. And this is an example of allegedly hospice services were being provided in this second floor walk-up, boarded up building. Now, maybe it was more legitimate at the time, but it was something where, it presented a very compelling visual story, if you will, coupled with the actual facts of the case. And that was something that I think also Dr. Oz wanted people to know. People were getting billed for this, but unlikely any services were actually being provided.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned that I'd like to follow up on a little bit is this whole manipulation of the benefit that also is equally concerning to us. It's a little bit less than the outright fraud, but and we've talked about this before, but I'd love to hear your thoughts again. In the NPHI world, all of our providers provide all the levels of care, and those are all parts of the conditions of participation. And a lot of the profiteers are providing only the home care benefit and not the others, and that's the way they're able to have 30% margins versus our 1% margins, and but that to me and to us is a manipulation of the benefit and unfair to beneficiaries who need those different levels of care. I'd like for you to expand a little bit about your thoughts about that, and how can that be addressed as well? Because I think, yes, of course, getting rid of the programs that are completely fraudulent, but I think that's bordering fraudulent.
Well, and that's part of what we're trying to get at on several levels. I think one is we want people to have more awareness for if they're signed up for these services and what that means.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things here that came away from our meeting was we were already doing in Nevada a pilot project, sending letters to people who were signed up for hospice saying, did you realize that hospice has been elected on your behalf?
Yeah.
And we're just starting to see some of the results of that. I don't have enough good data to be able to tell you what that looks like. But then as a result of our visit to California, I can tell you that a week after we got back, literally within a week after we got back, we sent 2,900 letters out in Central District of California to beneficiaries there asking a similar question. So I'll be very interested to report back to you in another 3 or 4 weeks once we sort of see what the result is of all that, what that looks like. But in those letters, we tried very hard to explain what an actual benefit looks like and what people should expect and what kinds of questions they and their caregivers should be asking. So our hope is, to your point, to really use this as an educational tool to educate caregivers and the people receiving the care, and then to alert them, because if they're not actually signed up and they don't know it, hopefully this gives them a way that there's an alert to them that they can actually do something about it. Because we do have a way, and Carol and I had talked about this, we've had instances where we've been able to unenroll people very quickly. Like when people let us know, we can disenroll them literally within a day or two.
Yes.
So, but the key is letting them know that they can get disenrolled and what to do about that. And that hopefully allows for legitimate care to occur.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can then hold people accountable for those who are providing substandard care or not providing the level that one of your members would provide.
Yeah. Excellent.
But and when you're getting to know us so well now and some of our pain points, and you're also learning some of the wonderful things that our members do, whether that's palliative care, whether that's adult daycare, right? A whole complement of services. What are your thoughts about how we integrate and how we do better in that area and improve and make sure that we are doing the right thing for the right reasons at the right time?
Well, I think it's a really important point, Carol, and this is something that Chris Klomp, who was with us for the visits, Chris is the head of our Center for Medicare. He and Dr. Oz have been spending a lot of time talking about aging with dignity, I think is one of the current catchphrases. I'm not sure where they're going to end up, but, sort of, being able to have it so that people are able to age with the tools that they need to be able to age well.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that really impressed Dr. Oz as a clinician, and certainly impressed me as somebody who, and a special shout out to Carol here. I unfortunately had a family situation going on while we were on this trip with a family member who was potentially going to need some hospice help or at least some additional help. And Carol was amazing and stepped in and helped to get me connected and helped with all the logistics on that. But the fact of the matter is that's the sort of thing that it's like trying to find it so that, people know what the tools are that are available to help them as they age. Like with my family member, it was, a situation where, the husband has some dementia, older gentleman wasn't, the wife is no longer able to care for him because he's just too big and too much for her to get around. But it's sort of like, she feels guilty for not caring for him, but yet he needs a special level of care she can't provide. So it's sort of helping people come to grips that that's the better choice is to get them that help and to be able to have then that therapy that he needs, the wraparound services, all the things, whether it ends up going to hospice or whether it's just him, for the duration. That's what's really important. I think that's what was really key. And I think what people really took away from Nathan Edelman in particular was, however long somebody is on their hospice journey, you all really made it a journey that was with dignity and respect and gave them a lot of tools to help them be able to do that in a very peaceful and transitional way. And I think that's what we should do with all of our Medicare beneficiaries is offer them those types of services.
And it's certainly something that we are working hard with our members who are agree and are trying to develop additional services beyond the current hospice core to make sure that as they care for patients that they can identify those additional services they need or support they need and be able to provide that. So we call it aging in place. So we can help them age in place with dignity and support, which is really critical.
And I think that's where CMS would really love to get to as well. I think you will hear much more from CMS about that from a policy side.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm going to keep leading the good fight along with my colleagues and Dr. Oz to sort of get rid of the bad
Yeah,
actors out of
sure.
here so that we can focus on really providing the care. But what we want too is to make sure that the money that needs to go to that care actually goes to that care and isn't getting lost for all these fraudulent schemes. And that's really important to us too. But to give people the tools to age in place or to age in a safe place,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be for them, is really critical. And I think that's something we owe it to our seniors to really help provide that to them.
Well, and we have the experience of dealing with this population, and I think we could not agree more. I was saying to Carol earlier before we got on the podcast, the fraud and abuse thing is so awful that it becomes the kind of the front and center. But we want to make sure that that we also are working to modernize the benefit, to look at expanding the services and doing more to keep patients at home or wherever they reside, but with the right support and dignity to age in place.
And something that we haven't really spent a lot of time talking about in a professional level, you and I have on a personal level, is caregivers and the role of a caregiver. And, I just now adore your aunt. She's become part of my family. She spends evenings with me on the phone, and I just think the world of her and what her commitment to your uncle and her husband. And talk to us about caregivers and how your view and perspective on caregivers.
I think this is another one where Dr. Oz comes at this from such a unique perspective, having been a clinician himself.
Yeah.
And as somebody who he himself, his wife, and they have aging parents, they're, thinking
Sure.
about those issues as well. And I think, he's really of the opinion, part of it is just how he was brought up when, in his background, it's very much you care for the elders. That's, part of your
Yes.
responsibility. It's, a lot of cultures have that, where the parents move in with the people, or there's you
Yeah.
don't have the idea of, we're just going to send them over there and forget about them or whatever. So I
Yeah.
think the more that we can do as a payer, because CMS ultimately is a payer, the more tools that we can provide and the more flexibilities we can provide to make it so that hopefully people can be able to make smart choices about the care for their loved ones. That's really what this is about. So I know that's what Chris Klomp and his team are spending a lot of time on, is just really trying to think through what levers can we at CMS provide and what are those tools. How is it that we can make it so that hopefully there is no economic detriment to caring for them in your home? Why is it that the default should be that you have to go from a hospital immediately to a rehab facility?
Yeah.
Is there a way you could go home and still get some OT and PT and stuff in another type of setting? Are there, things like that? And honestly, we've seen even with the hospital at home demonstration,
Yes.
which since the budget, I think, may be passed or about to be passed here today,
Any minute.
the fact is, that should be continuing on, which is wonderful news, because that particular benefit, that hospital at home program, I think has really shown that in certain instances, providing those acute care services in the home, it's just so much more beneficial in terms of outcomes for that beneficiary, because they're able to stay with their pets, their loved ones. They're able to have a more familiar environment. You're not in the hospital with a stranger, getting poked and prodded all day. There's just a lot to be said. If you have a condition that can be treated that way, what a difference that makes. And the same thing, if we could have it so the older people, if my uncle was qualified for that, that would be a prime example.
Yes,
I mean, my
sure.
aunt has done a wonderful job for 2 years now of taking care of him as he's gone through this journey. She's reached a point where she can't anymore, but thankfully there are resources to help her and good places that will take good care of him. And that's what we need, is to provide people with that range of options so that they can make the right choice for them and their family.
Well, you are a great niece to your aunt, and you have been a dear friend to our members and to NPHI. We can't thank you enough for continuing to collaborate with us and work with us as we move forward.
Well, and all the things we've talked about today, we really look forward to working with you. We're completely aligned in the approach, and how we can continue to better serve people at home who are aging and ultimately terminal is really our goal and mission. So we look forward to working with you, continuing to work with you, Kim, in the future on these critically important issues, and we're so grateful for the partnership that we have.
Same here. We look forward to continuing to work with you all, and I'm really excited. I think in the next
Yep.
6 months, we're going to make some great progress together on all of these issues. And so look forward to maybe coming back in the fall and seeing how well we did.
I love it.
So,
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kim.
all right.
We look forward to
Thanks,
that.
guys.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.